What's up, cool people? I'm Matt Conroy, and graduation season is upon us once again. I specifically have a younger sister who is graduating from high school. So, just, I don't know, I guess I kind of wanted to put some words of advice, or maybe kind of reflection, I don't know, just a couple things I wanted to say in regards to, and specifically addressed to people who are graduating, whether it's from high school or college. Just some thoughts from my angle and my being on the flip side of all that. And first off, so I don't know how familiar all of you might be with the PragerU videos and stuff that they put online. I primarily see those as I'm scrolling through Facebook, but I saw their kind of commencement speech thing for this year given by Adam Carolla, who I guess is some sort of, I know him, I think, primarily as a comedian, and also I guess he's kind of a social activist, doing a few things like that these days. But personally, I think in terms of commencement speeches, I'm going to air quote commencement speech just because really I think it was totally terrible if you're trying to give a commencement speech, because you're supposed to be encouraging and maybe giving some advice. And while you could argue, yes, it was advice, it was not encouraging, like in the slightest. So, yeah. But it brought a couple of things to mind, and so the main thing that I think kind of the early portions of it was trying to say is don't make excuses. You can, try and thoroughly explain what happened and what your thought process was and why you did what you did, but don't treat it as something that, excuses you or exempts you from consequences for it just because, you did your best or whatever. Because if that's your best, then it's probably not good enough if you did your best and still messed up. But anyway, that was kind of, I think, really one of the best pieces of advice that he gave. And I would say even beyond that, beyond just not making excuses for your actions, yes, you can apologize and all that kind of stuff, and you could try and do better. That's improvement is what we're going for here, kind of as a society and even as individual people. You try and improve all throughout your life. But also, don't make excuses for yourself. Like, don't just try and say that, oh, because I am this way, I get a pass on this thing. And then there was some sort of weirdo beach analogy thing saying, don't be somebody who adds more posts, adds more warnings on the sign. Basically, I think the point of that, it was just that he was getting at, we as a society are complaining way too much about way too many things these days, and it seems like the way we try and fix those things is to just take it to government or court or whatever and wind up getting new laws made or at least new regulations for certain places. We tend to try and triangulate our problems these days. We don't go directly to the person we have a problem with anymore because, saying that we don't like something that they're doing or whatever directly to them is deemed rude. Which, if you do it correctly, then it shouldn't be that rude. And really, I'll go back to my video from a while back. I forget when exactly it was in relation to today, but going back to the biblical model of conflict management basically says the first thing that you should do when you have a problem with a person is go to that person. So, no, it's not rude to go to somebody and tell them you have a problem with what they're doing. Now, if you say it rudely, yes. But that's your words and your attitude that's rude, not your action. Not the general approaching them with your problem. And so, like, instead of going up to these people who are generally the rare exceptions to what's happening and saying, hey, you know what? I don't like what you're doing. I don't, I'm not really cool with it. Do you think maybe you could stop it or move it somewhere else or something like that? We just go to, I'm just going to say management for lack of a better term. We go to like management or government or some sort of higher power and complain, and then rather than actually getting the problem with the person fixed, we just wind up creating some sort of new rule that affects other people. Now, there are some things that are problems that, yeah, there might need to be some rules made about those. But, I guess the main point I'm trying to make is make sure that you have tried to fix the problem between you and the person in question first, rather than taking it to a grand scale as your first and only resort. But anyway, moving on to some of my own thoughts and words of advice, encouragement, and that kind of stuff. First off, let me just say, don't be hard on yourself. Don't be surprised even if things along your career path don't go the way you envisioned. This is certainly not how I pictured my career path going, but I'm here, and you know what? It's not the end of the world. Heck, some people will even have multiple career changes. I mean, some people will change majors in college if that doesn't work out quite how they thought. And honestly, there are so many people out there that experience these significant changes in their course of life that really, as long as you're working hard at what you're doing and, you're able to make a living off of it, you come out way better than a good portion of the world, especially if you're doing so within the US or even just modern Western civilized society. Because, if you're able to put food on the table, have a roof over your head, car, house, it's just, if you're able to have a lot of the luxuries that we in America tend to take for granted, you're a whole lot better than most of the world already. And so, even if it's not what you had dreamed of, and it wasn't what you had in mind when you first graduated high school or college, you're making a living. And like I said before, it's not the end of the world. If you really have something that you're passionate about and you're not able to follow up on that within your career life, then, for one, that's what hobbies are for. But also, you have time, in your spare time, if you're really passionate about that, to pursue it, to, if it's financially possible, you could take some classes to learn about this passion of yours, and then actually follow up on it later. Life rarely goes as we expect it to, and there's a whole lot of stuff in my life that I could use as an example of that. But anyway, so don't get down on yourself and don't stress out or really think too hard on whether or not it's your fault for your situation not going as you planned. Kind of shifting gears a little bit in terms of advice. If you are, out there job searching, looking for employment in whatever field, so there's a popular phrase that goes, expect the unexpected. And yes, that is actually some decent advice. You should, if you can, plan ahead, set money aside for emergencies and that kind of stuff. And I think that's kind of one of the main uses of that phrase. But I think when it comes to building a career and getting a job and that kind of stuff, don't just expect the unexpected. Be unexpected yourself. And what I mean by that is a lot of jobs these days, it just the job market in general is so overflowed with candidates from all different directions. A lot of jobs that you couldn't just get while you're in or just out of high school. A lot of those, they're going to be looking closely at a lot of resumes, and they're going to be sorting through candidates, and really they're going to be looking for something that sets a candidate apart. And it's not always just a specialized skill that is automatically obvious and relevant to that job or that field. Do some stuff that's different and unexpected, and sometimes that, even though it doesn't seem automatically relevant to your field, sometimes that'll set you apart enough for them to consider you a little bit more closely, and then you get more opportunity to, kind of make your case for why you should get this particular job that you're applying for. I guess for me personally, people look at my resume and they talk to me, and there doesn't seem to be a whole lot that sets me apart. And if I'm just trying to stick to, in my case, youth ministry stuff, and that's all I really think about and focus on, well, guess what? There are a whole lot of other people that have a whole lot more experience in youth ministry, that have, they've probably gotten more education related to youth ministry. There's a whole lot of other things that will set other candidates apart. And while, yes, you can just try and go for that hard work, lots of education and experience approach, you don't always have to take that route to set yourself apart. Final piece of advice or encouragement, I don't know. The final word that I have, I guess in hindsight for me personally, one of the really, I guess, kind of, if I'm honest with myself, kind of a mistake that I made in high school, kind of trying to decide career path and all that kind of stuff, is the way it seemed like things were going for me. I kind of got this false impression that there were only really two options, not necessarily for career choices, but basically it seemed to me that either I had to follow the very practical approach and focus on what I'm good at and make a career out of that, or I could follow what I was passionate about and make a career out of that. And, the practical approach had me going along the lines of some sort of maybe engineering or some sort of math-based career. But what I was passionate about at the time was youth ministry specifically, and really just helping people in general and bringing people closer to God. And I had this thought in my mind basically that it was impossible for me to find something that I was going to be both good at and passionate about. Really, I think, in hindsight, if you think about it long enough, if you think about it hard enough, and you really try and find it, there is pretty much always a way to intersect those two things and have it be something you're both good at and passionate about. I mean, sometimes it's just a matter of, okay, you find something you're passionate about and you make yourself good at it. That is a possibility as well. Sometimes it's not always about working harder, sometimes it's working smarter. And rather than trying to find something that you're just passionate about, that you have no prior experience or education, and it's really not even something that you would naturally be good at, find something that is, you're passionate about it, but you also are kind of more naturally inclined towards it, or you have some experience with it, or you're just generally good at it. So, in some cases, if it doesn't seem apparent and obvious what that intersection would be between those two things, maybe you're the one to create that. There are a lot of people who have become super famous for essentially making that intersection happen, for doing something that they were both good at and passionate about, that previously, was some sort of unexplored career avenue, or even just an unexplored field in general. That's usually, more often than not, that kind of stuff is how real lasting innovation happens. Really, that I think is what I would say really my biggest piece of advice to all the graduates out there, especially those coming out of high school and going into college. But even if you're fresh out of college, I mean, you don't have to feel like you're stuck in a career path just because you got a degree in that. But especially for the high school students that are graduating and going into college, when you still have plenty of time to, contemplate your major, your career, all that kind of stuff. If you look for that cross-section, it saves you a whole lot of effort. If you're trying to follow the passionate but not good at kind of career path thing, then it's a hard road to follow. But if you find that cross-section, you've got both. So you're good at it, and you're passionate about it, so you don't have to work as hard making yourself good at what you're passionate about. But then if you follow the path of, okay, I'm good at this, I don't necessarily like it, but I'm good at it, so I'm going to do it because I can make a lot of money off of it or something like that, then those are the kind of situations, the kind of, I don't know, I'm going to air quote horror stories of prior generations that have tried to warn us away from doing things like that practically make you feel dead inside or whatever. Because just because you're good at something doesn't mean you'll enjoy it. Again, if you find that intersection, guess what? You're already good at it, so you don't have to try that hard to become good at it or to get better at it. But then you're also passionate about it, so guess what? It's not making you feel dead inside, and you're not feeling like you're just stuck in some sort of dead-end job that gets you nowhere in life and you don't get any enjoyment out of. So, again, big piece of advice. Try and find that cross-section of something you're good at, but also something you're passionate about. That'll get you a whole lot further, a whole lot quicker and easier in terms of career paths. So anyway, that's all I've got for this time around. I think I've already gone on long enough. So, as always, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Just look down in the description for all the different ways to keep up and interact with me and my videos. Leave a comment with your thoughts. If you're post-graduation and out in the workforce and, whatever advice, perspectives, things like that you have to add to the conversation, go ahead and leave a comment down below with all that. Or if you're a recent graduate that's, looking to start up your career, or you're just going into college or whatever, let your voice be heard too. I'm not going to say I'm an expert on analyzing career paths and all that kind of stuff, because clearly I'm not, given my own life. But, hey, I always enjoy trying to help people, so if you have any other questions or things you'd like me to talk about along the career path train of thought, then leave a comment. Maybe I'll make a video about it in the future, or maybe I'll just reply directly to your comments and let you know what I think about that particular question of yours. Anyway, that's all I've got. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I will see you next time. Stay cool, people.